Hey, what's up, you guys? You're watching Team APS. Paul here. So I'm probably reminding you of a certain other Yugi tuber today, recording in a car. But as you guys know, I'm on my winter break and I'm in a bunch of precarious positions. So that's why I haven't really been able to set up the camera and do a proper video. But I'll be back soon. Anyway, though, I thought this would be a fun discussion slash sort of interactive thing to get you guys involved a bit. And before Zodiacs come out. So, what is the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh deck of all time? And I thought this would be a good discussion because, a lot of people think that Zodiacs will be tier 0. And this is a question that changes through the years because, each year a new top tier deck comes out and, new people, like more people say like, oh, this is a tier 0 format or whatever. This might be the strongest deck of all time. And so I thought that this would be just kind of interesting to get out of the way before that comes out. And at the end of the video, there's actually going to be a poll that I'm going to add at the top here. It's just a YouTube button where you can click and vote for which of these 5 decks that I'm going to list are which one's in your opinion the strongest deck. Now the thing is, there's not a right or wrong answer to this. These are just my opinions. I picked 5 decks. I don't actually know which deck I think is the strongest out of these. I mean, like, I have a general idea, a rough order. I'm just going to go through each one and talk about it. And at the end, you can vote and in the comments, talk about why you picked the one that you picked, defend your choice. Because, everyone has different opinions and, as disclaimers, right? Like, each of these decks was really strong in its given format, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they would, be equally powerful if they're to play against each other. Now, I know Lithium 2300's done, cross-ban list tournaments where, different decks at their peak have played against each other, and so that's, an interesting thing to do, but there's still no definitive answer, but, is what it is. So, these are my 5 picks, actually in no particular order, so just kind of, yeah. First one is Pepe, or Performapal Pendulum. This is actually a pretty popular one from last year, from, Breakers of Shadow really kind of, brought this deck to the forefront. This is the one, with Plush Fire and, Damage Juggler, Performage Plush Fire, Performage Damage Juggler, and, all of the other insane stuff that this deck could do. It had Guiding Ariadne. It could search the entire Solemn Brigade super easily, super consistently. It can make Cyber Dragon Infinity because it can make Ptolemaeus really easily. It made Ignister Prominence and Dinoster and all that stuff. It could easily set the entire thing off with cards like Draco Face Off. And not to mention just the fact that this deck hit you kind of from all sides. I mean, you had to deal with the Solemn Brigade. You had to deal with the Pendulum mechanic, which, as we all know, is really powerful and pretty difficult to stop. And this deck could kind of do everything. It can make any rank 4s super easily. And it can make fusions. It can make, Xyzs. It can make synchros. And the fact of the matter is, this deck, if it went first, usually just didn't lose. And it was really hard for it to draw dead hands. Because, using stuff like Luster Pendulum and Plush Fire, you just instantly set up all sorts of crazy things. I actually wasn't all too familiar with how this deck worked because I didn't get to play as much of it as I probably needed to. But I've just seen videos. I remember watching YCS events of it. And I mean, this deck, in my opinion, is probably pretty close to number 1. It's definitely top 3 instead of top 5. They're also, it got an emergency ban list. So obviously it's definitely one of the stronger ones on this list. It had to be addressed. And I mean, it also, oh yeah, Wavering Eyes. Can't forget that crazy card. So yeah, this one's pretty high up there. I think that also just kind of relative to the other deck's time periods, it makes sense that it would be one of the stronger ones since, power creep and Yu-Gi-Oh! Year by year, each deck gets stronger. So it kind of makes sense that the most recent one would be one of the stronger ones. So yeah, that's my first one. I'm not saying that's number 1. That's just the one I'm discussing first. Next is Full Power Necros, which I think is another super high up candidate for this. Necros is ridiculously strong if you actually seen how the deck functioned at its prime. We're talking triple Preparation of Rites, we're talking triple Necros of Brionic, and we're talking Shred, of course, and the Genlock. So, this deck, I mean, there's a lot to be said about it. Obviously, it made the, ritual mechanic look completely busted because, these cards had ridiculously strong effects, and they had double effects, hand trap effects, plus just good monsters, and they had recurring advantage. You could easily search its spells. They all recycled each other. They could protect themselves, from the hand, and also Necros of Unicorn was just completely oppressive. Herald of Arclight was dumb. Rhoda searched Shred. Preparation of Right starts half the Necroz cast. And just, outside of that, one of the things that I think made this deck a lot better than some of the other decks in this list is that its monsters, really shut down opponent stuff, too. So, Brownic could deal with cards from the extra deck, and Unicorn negated extra deck monsters' effects. So, facing against it was really, really tough. And, obviously, it had strong stuff like Necroz of Trishula, and nobody likes that card. I mean, that thing just, ugh. And then there's the Genlock. Oh, the Genlock. So, the Gen release their rituals, stopping your opponent from special summoning. Obviously, that's oppressive. And what's even worse is the fact that, this card got so contentious that, there are people who said, let's just take the Gen out of our decks. We'll side it out game 2 and we'll play Yu-Gi-Oh! For real. For the record, I'm not an anti-Genlock person. I feel like if you put it in your deck, you should use it. Especially if it's in tournament, play to win. But anyway, and there's been drama with people like Patrick Hoban and others. But yeah, I think that Necroz is really high up on this list because of that mostly, but just the general consistency and superpower of the deck. Next up is Dragon Rulers. So you guys knew this would be on the list. We're talking 2013 Dragon Rulers with 3 of each of the adults. So 3 Tempest, Tidal, Blaster, Redox. And 3 of each of the babies, triple Super Rejuvenation, Big Eye, Dracosac. The whole 9 yards of just complete and utter bullshit this deck could do. These things were strong. All these Dragon Rulers were so easy to summon out. So just great stats and effects. But the fact that they recurred so easily and were so just there's a lot to say about it. Super Rejuvenation drew you 1 billion cards in the end phase, or at least that's what it felt like every turn. And you could use more and more and in the same end phase. Not to mention, the fact that there's Big Eye and Dracosac, which while maybe today they're not as great as perhaps they were at the time, but golly, they were really strong at the time. Big Eye and Dracosac could steal your monsters and pop your monsters, and they were literally Big Eye wars where just you took something of theirs and they Big Eyed your Big Eye and they used your Big Eye to take another monster. That was ridiculous. This deck to me I don't know. I think it's like some of the others, is probably on the top 3. Then the next deck is Spellbooks, Judgment Spellbooks. So we're talking triple Spellbook of Judgment. As you guys know, that card is redonkulously strong. It gets you so many cards, so much advantage. You can go +3, 4, 5, 6, 7 even. Getting to search spellbook cards for each spell that you activated during the turn. You can use it during either player's turn. Usually getting Jugin the Spiritualist, which completely shut your opponent out of the game, similar to a Genlock or something. Pretty ridiculous. And, let's not forget the fact that this deck, just in general, once you'd resolved a Spellbook of Judgment, you are pretty much set for the whole game in terms of resources, so your opponent wasn't really going to be beating you. It got to the point where there were versions of this deck that didn't even use its actual boss monster, the Priestess. It was just Jalgans and Kaikus. Now, the one thing about this deck is it really wasn't so much of a dominant deck as much as it was a counter to Dragon Rulers, sort of their sort of equal, type of thing. They could give them a run for their money. So I don't know that it would be the strongest, but I think it's definitely in the top 5, just because of that. And not too much else to say about it though. And the last one's kind of a sleeper pick, and that's Six Samurai, early 2011 Six Samurai with triple Gateway and triple Warning. So the thing about this was this deck didn't really last very long. This deck only lasted for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then it got hit on the ban list, so it's kind of hard to consider it. That's why it's more of a underdog sleeper pick type of thing. But triple Gateway is pretty ridiculous. The fact that you could open with it super consistently, and Gateway has loops with Kazan and gave you basically never-ending advantage, was crazy. I actually think that if this deck was around today, it would be probably one of the best, if not the best, rank 4 decks. So that's really saying something. And just this at the time when Six Samurai were kind of considered a tier 0 deck. And triple Warning didn't help anything. Nichiria Beast and Barkion, plus triple Xian and triple Smoke Signal. We can't forget about that. You were kind of locked out of spells and traps. You had to deal with this insane deck at the time. So yeah, this one I think is also a contender. And there were some runner-ups that just for varying reasons didn't make my list. So Teledad, I think a lot of people would point to it, but I think that while strong at the time, wouldn't stand up to any of these other decks. It just feels like it was balanced more for a 2008 era, which 2008, 2009, Yeah, I don't think it would be too strong today. I mean, if it opened with like oppressions and solemn judgments and stuff, then yeah, maybe. But it was just kind of your run-of-the-mill synchro deck by today's standards. I thought of stuff like Frog FTK, I thought of stuff like not Infernoids, but Infernities, but they didn't get triple Trishula, so yeah. And they're like OCG decks, but we're not counting that. So, yeah, this is the point in the video where there will be a voting thing somewhere at the top of the screen. You can vote for which of these 5 decks I mentioned you think is the top deck, or if you just disagree, you can talk about it in the comments. Obviously, like I said, there's not a right or wrong answer. This will just be an interesting discussion to have. Sorry this video had no editing. Normally I would edit in the card images or something, or music, but like I said, I'll be back with real videos soon. So, yeah, just vote. Talk about it in the comments. I thought it would be fun to do before Zodiacs come out. And that's pretty much it for the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you soon with, better quality things. But yeah, so that's going to be it. Remember to vote. Check me out on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. And I just recently made a Discord server. And I believe that is it. Subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'll see you in the next one.